The part you see on the screen points out a very critical factor of three-axis cut. That is, it only cuts a single surface at a time. In this example, we can either cut the gray surface or the orange surface, but not both. However, we can avoid surfaces that intersect the surface we want to cut. To do this, I'm going to go up to NC, down to 3-axis, and down to cut. It asks us to select a surface down at the bottom. I'm going to choose my original gray surface. We're going to stick with the 375 4-flute ball, but when I get to cut control, I'm going to move down to gouge check. We have three methods of gouge checking: none, single surface, and multi-surface. Single surface gouge check is used only for the surface that you're cutting. If you have a complicated surface that turns back on itself or has restricted areas, single surface gouge check is the way to prevent gouges. I would recommend this highly when cutting a single surface that's fairly complex. If we want to avoid other surfaces that intersect our main cutting surface, I can click on multi-surface gouge check. Our check clearance amount is the amount we're going to avoid the other surface by, and we can tell it to cut the check surfaces if we want to where they intersect our cutting surface. I'm going to uncheck this box and say not to cut them. Now I'll click OK. We select the surfaces to avoid by clicking on it. Click on Done up at the top and accept our tool path. If you look at the tool path, you can see that in the region where the orange surface intersects the gray, we're missing it. If we turn underneath it, we can see that there's no tool path there. We can turn this around and cut the orange surface and avoid the gray surface by regenerating and reselecting. If I click the Operations Manager, right mouse click, regenerate toolpath and reselect, I still see my multi-surface gouge check. I still have the original parameters, but now I can click OK. This time I'll click on the orange surface as the cutting surface and the gray surface as the surface to avoid. Click on Done, and there's our tool path cutting lengthwise. Remember, 3-axis cut cuts in the direction that the arrow is pointing. It cuts on the side of the surface that the arrow is on. If I want to cut over the top of the orange surface, simply go to Edit, Surfaces, click on Direction, click on the surface, and then we go back to the Operations Manager. I can right mouse click and then reselect. Click OK. Cutting surface is orange. Surface to avoid is gray. Click on Done. And there's our tool path avoiding the gray surface.